Okay, so here's how this is one approach. I know I say it often, but it's true because there's just one approach. So I would say, in this case, I would set up a constant. I would call it object. Okay, I would abbreviate it like that. I would then do the literal syntax. And in this case, I already have variable names I have set up. And I could just copy this, okay? And if that's the key, colon, and I could also make it the value, okay? That's one way to do it. But I could also at this point, also change the key if I wanted to make it something maybe a little more, anyway, I could change it because this is what I set up as like the variable name. So I could modify this to be whatever I wanted that might reflect it, right? So I could just say household, okay? Right? And then, and that also makes it a little easier, maybe quicker when I reference it. So now I would do household size. So I could do house size. Now in this case, I've already used house size. But more than anything, I want you to understand, again, this is the variable name. I can change this. So I could, let's see. Now I'm tempted to actually do that. I don't know if that, how would you abbreviate size? Would it be that? Just to show you the difference. And I could just do, again, this is where being descriptive, I could say house members maybe, and house size. Yeah, maybe something like that, right? And so now I would do, right? But this is where, okay, now we have house, the points. So I would say house member PTS. Yeah, okay, I can do that. Okay. So house member PTS. Again, get creative here with your household. Is that right? I just want to make sure. Household PTS. Yeah. So why aren't these showing up? I just want to make sure. I'm passing them in. That's right. Remember here when I'm passing them into the function, right? That's why they weren't showing up. So now I do house. Right. So I'm actually going to type this house size PTS, and that would be, okay. So again, I'm setting the key value pairs, and then I would do CFP total would be equal to total. And in keeping with the syntax, I don't have to use a comma on this last one. So now I have the object, okay. So now what am I going to do with that object? There's a couple of things I could do here. I could actually just, wherever I'm calling start from, I'm not going to do this, but I could just say return the object, return the CFP object. Now if I did that, right, I would need to come down here and change my start to then capture that. So that's one way. But if I didn't want to, I could just pass this to another function. I could pass this object. So I'm going to write another function that says, right, display out, and I'm going to call object. Now again, the only reason that this is something I've come up with, just to say this function is going to display output, but it's going to be specialized for the object. And in this case, here's my function, right? So where would I call this function at? Well, I'd call it right after I created the object, again, assuming, right, because I have created the object here, and now I would pass it into here. So I could just say display object out, and I'd say CFP object here. Do you see that? And now up here, now remember, we're passing this reference to this object. And when we are inside of this block scope, we can name that because it's being passed anything we want. And I'd probably abbreviate it just to call it object, right? And then, just to make sure it all is connected, I would say object. Okay, so what I have here is I'm no longer using the arrays. I'm no longer iterating over. I'm just creating an object and outputting it. Okay, now I don't have, let's see. Oh yeah, I still have down here. I still have this, so I just want to comment that out. Now that I have that, I still have some of that output, but I can now see my object that I've created. Okay? So now, what would I do? How would I reference those? How would I create the output? Well, I could kind of cheat a little bit. I could come down here where I've already done it. And again, kind of what I showed you before is I'm going to grab these lines. I'm going to copy them so I don't have to type all of them. Inside of here, I'm going to paste them. And select them, uncomment them out, clean this up, format selection with prettier, and then at least it's updated. Oh yeah, what else am I needing there here? I've referenced the output, which I still have. Oh yeah, so what else would I need? If I come back down here, I would also need this line. So I'm just going to grab that line without the comment, right? Okay, so now I have at least, right, the object. Now how would I change this to output from the object reference? Because right now, if I go, right, it's like it's going to error out. It's going to go, nope, I can't, I don't understand, because A, we're no longer using that array. Okay. So this is now broken, but what we want to do is reference. So let's actually set a breakpoint here and look at this code. So I see here's the object being passed in. I see the total. So how would I change this? Now again, if I just wanted to play around before I wrote the code, because now that I'm in the breakpoint, I could reference the object dot. Remember, the dot notation, CFP total, would give me at least that total out, the total value. Right, so that is the code I'd want to do here. So object dot CFP total. Now I'm not writing the rest just because of the time, so I definitely recommend playing around with this, because the more experience you get. Now we didn't use the this reference, we didn't write a function here. I'm actually, I think, going to do a challenge for the discussion to give you rewriting this code using objects and using the this, but I'm going to think about that next. All right, so questions about this would be great time to ask. Again, go back down here, grab some of this code we already wrote, figure out how to modify some of this other, depending on how you did it, to output that object. Right? Again, we're only outputting one object. So every time, and by the way, I'll end with this. Now that we have this kind of in place, we could call it multiple times. We're not storing it in the array, but we could output it multiple times. And why is that true? Because we're calling it multiple times, and we've modified our code to create an object that we're then passing into a function. So instead of storing each one, anyway, hope that kind of clears that up, and I hope you have fun with that, and I hope you ask questions if you need. So here's what you'll need to do here for this one, right, is to do solution and output for objects, making sure you've done all that output, making sure all these, I just, again, for time's sake, just showed you the total. Make sure you output each one like I've shown before. All right, hope you had fun with this. Let's continue on to this week's discussion / group coding.